The research station on Kepler, for 42b, hung like a metal spider against the amber sky, its 8 legs buried deep into the crystalline surface of the planet. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the observation window, watching the twin suns cast dancing shadows across the alien landscape. 3 years she had been here, 3 years of cataloging, studying, and trying to understand this world that defied every expectation humanity had brought with them. Still staring at those formations, Dr. Marcus Webb joined her at the window, coffee mug steaming in his hands. The crystalline structures stretched to the horizon like a frozen ocean of glass, each formation unique yet somehow connected to its neighbors. "They're not formations," Sarah said quietly. "I'm sure of it now. The electromagnetic readings, the way they pulse in sequence during the planet's storm cycles. Marcus, I think they're alive." Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. "Alive?" "Sarah, they're silicon-based structures. Beautiful, yes, but they're just geological phenomena." The review board was clear about this. Sarah pulled up her tablet, swiping through months of data. "Look at this pattern. Every 72 hours, they emit these synchronized pulses. And watch what happens when I overlay the seismic data." The screen showed waves of activity moving through the crystal network like a slow heartbeat. "Correlation isn't causation," Marcus said, but his voice carried less certainty than before. "Then, explain this." Sarah showed him the latest readings. Yesterday's solar storm should have disrupted any natural electromagnetic activity. But the crystals adapted. They changed their frequency to compensate. Geological formations don't do that, Marcus. Organisms do. Before Marcus could respond, the station's alarm system began its low, urgent wail. Red lights bathed the observation deck as Captain Torres's voice crackled through the intercom. "All personnel to designated safety stations. We have multiple contacts approaching from the southern crystal fields. Unknown biological signatures. This is not a drill." Sarah and Marcus rushed to the command center, where Captain Torres stood before a bank of monitors displaying the station's sensor data. The screen showed a dozen shapes moving through the crystal maze, each one roughly the size of a small shuttle. "How long until they reach us?" Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's xenobiologist, asked as she studied the approaching signatures. "At their current speed, maybe 20 minutes, Torres replied. His military bearing couldn't quite hide the worry in his voice. "I've sent a priority message to Earth Command, but we're on our own until the cavalry arrives." Sarah watched the shapes move across the screen with fluid grace, weaving between the crystal formations without disturbing them. "They're not attacking the crystals," she observed. "Look how they navigate around them." "Maybe the crystals are in the way," Marcus suggested. "Or maybe they are avoiding damage to something they value," Sarah countered. Dr. Tanaka pulled up the biological analysis. "Whatever these things are, they are massive. The thermal signatures suggest they are warm-blooded, with complex internal structures. Multiple organ systems, possibly even neural networks." "Are they intelligent?" Torres asked. "Unknown. But they are coordinated. See how they move in formation? That suggests either pack behavior or organized intelligence." The creatures continued their approach, and the station's external cameras finally got clear images. The command center fell silent as the beings came into view. They were unlike anything in Earth's databases. Each creature stood nearly 4 meters tall on 6 powerful legs that ended in crystalline claws perfectly adapted for gripping the planet's surface. Their bodies were covered in what looked like natural armor plating that shifted color with their movements, flowing from deep purple to silver blue. Most unsettling were their heads, elongated skulls with multiple sensory organs and what appeared to be natural weapon ports along their jaw lines. "Dear God," Dr. Tanaka whispered. "They are magnificent." "They are terrifying," Marcus corrected. "Those weapons, look at the size of those claws." Captain Torres was already moving. "All defensive systems online. Seal the station. Emergency protocols are now in effect." "Wait," Sarah called out. "Captain, they are slowing down." Indeed, the creatures had stopped their advance about a kilometer from the station. They arranged themselves in a wide circle, their armored heads turning as if studying the human outpost from every angle. Why did they stop? Torres wondered aloud. Dr. Tanaka was analyzing the new data streaming in from the sensors. They're scanning us. Some kind of energy pulse, very sophisticated. It's almost like they're trying to understand what we are. The feeling's mutual, Sarah muttered. For the next hour, the creatures remained motionless around the station. The humans watched and waited, tension building with each passing minute. Earth Command had acknowledged their message, but the nearest military vessel was still 6 days away. I'm going outside, Sarah announced suddenly. Absolutely not, Torres shot back. We don't know their intentions. That's exactly why I need to go out there. We're in a standoff, Captain. They're studying us, we're studying them. Someone needs to make the first move, and it should be the one who's been studying this planet for 3 years. Dr. Chen, those creatures could kill you before you take 10 steps. They could have attacked already if that was their intention. They stopped. They are waiting. Maybe they want to communicate. Dr. Tanaka looked up from her instruments. Sarah might be right. I'm detecting complex vocalizations between them. Structured, varied, it could be language. Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm. Even if you're right about their intentions, you don't know their capabilities. What if they see your approach as aggressive? Sarah gently removed his hand. Then, I'll make sure they don't. No weapons, slow movements, hands visible. Universal peaceful intentions. Captain Torres studied the tactical display. I don't like it, but our options are limited. If they wanted us dead, we'd probably be dead already. Dr. Chen, you'll wear full environmental gear and maintain constant radio contact. First sign of hostility, you retreat immediately. Understood. 30 minutes later, Sarah stood at the station's main airlock, fully suited and checking her equipment one final time. The environmental suit was bulky but necessary. The planet's atmosphere was barely breathable for humans, and the temperature fluctuations could be deadly without protection. Comms check, Torres's voice crackled in her helmet. Loud and clear. Remember, Dr. Chen, you're not trying to be a hero. Just gather information and get back alive. Sarah cycled through the airlock and stepped onto the planet's surface. The crystalline ground crunched beneath her boots as she began walking slowly toward the waiting creatures. With each step, the beings became more imposing. Their armor wasn't just decorative, it was clearly functional, designed for both protection and combat. When she was still 50 meters away, the creatures began to move. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as the massive beings shifted position, but they didn't advance. Instead, they parted, creating a clear path toward what appeared to be their leader, a creature slightly larger than the others, with more elaborate armor patterns. They're letting me approach, Sarah reported. Moving very slowly. As she drew closer, she could see the alien's multiple eyes tracking her movement. The creature's head tilted, and Sarah heard a sound like wind chimes mixed with whale song emanating from its direction. Did you hear that? She asked. We heard it, Tanaka replied from the station. Recording everything. Keep going, but stay alert. Sarah stopped about 10 meters from the leader creature and slowly raised her hands, palms outward. The universal gesture meant nothing to an alien species, but her posture and slow movements might convey peaceful intent. The creature studied her for a long moment, then made that beautiful, haunting sound again. This time, the other creatures responded with similar vocalizations, creating a complex harmony that seemed to resonate through the crystalline ground itself. It's like music, Sarah breathed. Then, something extraordinary happened. The leader creature's armor began to shift color, flowing through patterns of blue and green and gold. The display was mesmerizing, and Sarah found herself stepping closer despite every instinct telling her to maintain distance. The creature noticed her approach and fell silent. For a moment that stretched like eternity, human and alien regarded each other across the vast gulf of evolution and understanding. Then, the creature did something that changed everything. It lowered its massive head in what could only be interpreted as a bow. "My God," Sarah whispered. "I think it's showing respect." She mimicked the gesture, lowering her head briefly while keeping her eyes on the creature. When she looked up, the alien's armor was cycling through what looked like pleased patterns of warm colors. "Sarah, you need to see this," Dr. Tanaka's excited voice burst through her comm. "The other creatures, they are not just watching you. They are forming a protective circle around both of you." Sarah glanced around and saw that Tanaka was right. The other aliens had repositioned themselves to face outward, as if guarding against some unseen threat. "Threat from what?" Sarah asked. Her answer came as a low rumble that seemed to rise from the planet itself. The crystalline ground began to vibrate, and, in the distance, something dark was moving between the crystal formations. The alien leader's armor instantly shifted to deep red warning patterns, and it made a sharp, urgent sound. The other creatures responded immediately, their own armor darkening as they took defensive positions. "Sarah, you need to get back here now," Captain Torres ordered. "We're reading massive seismic activity approaching your position." But, as Sarah turned to retreat, the dark shapes in the distance resolved into something far worse than seismic activity. Creatures were emerging from the crystal maze, creatures that made the beings around her look small and delicate by comparison. These new arrivals were easily twice the size of Sarah's alien contact, with thick, brutal armor and weapon appendages that glowed with ominous energy. Where the first creatures moved with fluid grace, these newcomers crashed through the crystal formations, destroying ancient structures without care. Predators, Sarah realized. The first group wasn't hunting us. They were protecting us. The alien leader turned back to Sarah, its armor flashing rapid patterns that somehow conveyed urgent meaning despite the language barrier. Then, it did something that would echo through human understanding for generations to come. It moved to stand between Sarah and the approaching threat, spreading its arms wide in a gesture of protection that transcended species barriers. The message was clear: it would defend the small, fragile human against creatures that could tear her apart without effort. As the first of the massive predators broke free from the crystal maze and charged toward them with devastating speed, Sarah finally understood what they were dealing with. This wasn't first contact with a single species, it was first contact with an entire ecosystem, complete with predators and prey, hunters and protectors. And, somehow, impossibly, humanity had found themselves under the protection of creatures that their own protocols had labeled as monsters. The battle was about to begin, and Sarah Chen, xenobiologist and first human ambassador to an alien species, stood at the center of it all, protected by a being whose nature would challenge everything humanity thought they knew about intelligence, cooperation, and the possibility of finding allies among the stars. The predators closed the distance with terrifying speed, and Sarah's protector began to glow with energy patterns that suggested its beautiful exterior hid capabilities far beyond what the humans had imagined. The real test of this unprecedented alliance was about to begin. The first predator reached them with the fury of an avalanche. Sarah had never seen anything move so fast while being so massive. The creature was a nightmare of chitin and fury, its multiple weapon appendages already glowing with deadly energy as it bore down on her position. Her protector didn't hesitate. The graceful being that had bowed to her moments before transformed into something magnificent and terrible. Energy coursed along its armor in brilliant patterns, and weapon ports that Sarah hadn't even noticed opened along its arms and shoulders. The sound it made was no longer the beautiful whale song from before, this was a war cry that made the crystalline ground beneath them ring like a struck bell. The collision between protector and predator shook the earth. Sarah was thrown backward by the shockwave, her environmental suit system screaming warnings about impact damage. Through the chaos, she watched her defender grapple with the massive predator, energy weapons firing in brilliant bursts that lit up the amber sky. "Sarah! Sarah, respond!" Captain Torres's voice cut through her stunned confusion. "I'm alive," she gasped, struggling to her feet. "But, barely. These things are fighting over me." "Not over you," Dr. Tanaka's voice joined the channel. "The protective formation around you is holding. They are defending their territory, and you're in it." Sarah looked around and saw that Tanaka was right. The circle of alien defenders was engaged in individual battles with the predators, but they maintained their formation. No matter how intense their individual fights became, they never let the predators break through to reach her. The alien leader delivered a devastating blow to its opponent, sending the predator tumbling backward. But even as it fell, the massive creature's tail weapon swept around, catching Sarah's protector across the chest and sending it crashing into a nearby crystal formation. No? Sarah found herself shouting, surprising herself with the intensity of her concern for the alien being. The protector struggled to rise, its armor showing damage patterns in dark, spreading patches. The predator advanced for what looked like a killing blow, and Sarah did something that would have horrified her supervising committee back on Earth. She ran toward the fight. "Dr. Chen, what are you doing?" Torres demanded. Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't explain the impulse that drove her forward. The alien had chosen to protect her, and now it was hurt because of that choice. She couldn't just stand by and watch it die. She reached the fallen protector just as the predator loomed over both of them. The massive creature reared up, preparing to strike, when Sarah did the only thing she could think of. She placed herself between the predator and her protector, arms spread wide in the same gesture of protection the alien had shown her. The predator paused, confused by this tiny creature's defiance. In that moment of hesitation, Sarah's protector surged upward, its weapon systems fully charged. The energy blast caught the predator center mass, sending it flying backward to crash among the distant crystal formations. The protector looked down at Sarah with what she could only interpret as amazement. Its armor cycled through patterns of blue and gold that seemed to express something between gratitude and wonder. "They are retreating," Dr. Tanaka reported from the station. "The predators are falling back." Indeed, the massive creatures were withdrawing from the battle, dragging their wounded with them. The defenders didn't pursue, they simply maintained their positions until the threat disappeared back into the crystal maze. Sarah helped her protector to its feet, her small hands barely spanning one of its crystalline claws. The alien looked down at her with those multiple eyes, and Sarah could swear she saw intelligence there. Not just animal cunning, but real, deep intelligence. "You understand me, don't you?" she said quietly. "Not my words, but you understand what I'm trying to say." The alien's armor shifted to soft, warm colors, and it made a gentle sound like distant thunder mixed with music. Then, it did something extraordinary. It reached out one massive clawed hand and gently touched Sarah's helmet, careful not to damage the delicate equipment. "Sarah, we're reading massive changes in the crystal formations around you," Dr. Tanaka's excited voice cut through the moment. "Whatever just happened, it's affecting the entire network." Sarah looked around and gasped. The crystal formations were glowing, pulsing with synchronized light that spread outward like ripples in a pond. The pattern was beautiful and complex, carrying information in ways that human science barely understood. "They are communicating," she breathed. "The crystals aren't just alive, they're the planet's communication network. And the aliens are part of it." Her protector confirmed her guess by placing one clawed hand on a nearby crystal formation. Immediately, the glow intensified, and Sarah could hear the musical harmonics that meant the aliens were speaking to the crystal network. "What are they saying?" Marcus asked over the comm. "I don't know, but I think they're telling the planet about us." "About what just happened?" The conversation between alien and crystal continued for several minutes, with the light pattern spreading farther and farther across the landscape. Sarah watched in fascination as information traveled at the speed of light through the crystalline network, carrying news of the first peaceful contact between humans and aliens to every corner of the planet. When the communication ended, Sarah's protector turned back to her. This time, it didn't just bow, it knelt, bringing its massive head down to her level. The gesture was unmistakable: respect, recognition, perhaps even friendship. Other aliens approached, and Sarah tensed, but their armor showed peaceful patterns. One by one, they also acknowledged her with bows or gentle touches. She was being formally introduced to the group. "This is incredible," Dr. Tanaka whispered over the comm. "Sarah, you've just participated in what looks like an alien diplomatic ceremony. I think you're right. And I think it worked." The alien leader stood and gestured toward the research station. The meaning was clear enough, it wanted to see where the humans lived. Sarah, absolutely not, Captain Torres interrupted. We can't bring unknown aliens into the station. Captain, these aliens just fought to protect me. They've accepted me into their group. If we want to build any kind of relationship with them, we need to show trust. And, if you're wrong about their intentions. Sarah looked up at her protector, whose armor was cycling through patient, calm patterns. I'm not wrong. It took another hour of debate, but eventually Captain Torres agreed to allow a small delegation of aliens to approach the station. Sarah served as escort, walking beside her protector while two other aliens flanked them at a respectful distance. As they approached the research station, Sarah could see her colleagues watching through the observation windows. She tried to imagine what this looked like from their perspective, their xenobiologist walking calmly beside creatures that could easily tear apart their entire facility. The aliens stopped at the station's entrance and waited. They made no aggressive moves, showed no interest in forcing their way inside. They simply waited for permission to enter. They understand the concept of invitation, Sarah reported. They are waiting for us to welcome them. Dr. Tanaka was the first to emerge from the station, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. She approached slowly, her recording equipment documenting every moment of the historic encounter. The alien leader noticed her instruments and made a questioning sound. When Tanaka held up her tablet, showing the data being collected, the alien's armor brightened with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as pleased patterns. It understands that you're studying it, Sarah realized. And it approves. Dr. Tanaka slowly moved closer, her tablet recording detailed scans of the alien's biological structure. The creature stood perfectly still, allowing itself to be examined with patient dignity. Sarah, Tanaka whispered, these readings are incredible. Its nervous system is vastly more complex than anything we've encountered. The neural pathways suggest intelligence levels that might rival our own. Might rival? Dr. Tanaka, I think these beings might be smarter than us. To test this theory, Sarah picked up a small crystalline fragment from the ground and handed it to her protector. The alien examined the fragment for a moment, then placed it against one of its own armor plates. Immediately, the fragment began to glow and change color. It's programming the crystal, Tanaka breathed. Somehow, it's encoding information into the crystalline structure. The alien handed the fragment back to Sarah. Now the crystal pulsed with complex patterns of light that seemed to carry meaning. I think it's trying to give us a message, Sarah said. Dr. Tanaka quickly ran the fragment through her analysis equipment. The patterns are mathematical. Sarah, this is a primer, basic mathematical concepts that could serve as the foundation for a translation protocol. It's teaching us how to communicate with them. Marcus emerged from the station, his skepticism warring with wonder as he watched the interaction. Even if they are intelligent, we need to be careful. We don't know their society, their values, their concept of conflict resolution. As if summoned by his words, a new sound echoed across the crystal fields. It was different from the harmonious communications Sarah had heard before, harsh, discordant, filled with aggression. The aliens around the station immediately responded, their armor shifting to warning colors. Sarah's protector moved to stand between her and the source of the sound, which was coming from the opposite direction of the earlier predator attack. We're detecting movement, Captain Torres reported from the command center. Multiple contacts approaching from the northeast. These readings are different from the predators you encountered earlier. Through the crystal maze came a new group of aliens, but these moved differently from either the protectors or the predators. They moved with purpose and organization, in tight formations that suggested military discipline. Those are soldiers, Sarah realized. We're looking at an alien army. Her protector and its companions were clearly agitated by this development. They began making rapid, urgent sounds while their armor flashed in complex warning patterns. They are trying to tell us something, Dr. Tanaka said. But what? The answer became clear when the approaching army emerged from the crystal formations. These aliens wore additional armor plating marked with symbols that looked like rank insignia. Their movements were coordinated and precise, they carried what were unmistakably weapons designed for warfare rather than hunting. But, most disturbing of all, they were herding a group of the Protector-type aliens before them. Prisoners. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "There's a war going on." Her protector turned to her, its armor now showing desperate patterns of red and orange. It pointed toward the approaching army, then toward itself and its companions, then toward the station. The message was clear: the military aliens were coming for the protectors who had befriended the humans, and they saw the research station as either an asset to be claimed or a threat to be eliminated. Sarah's protector had chosen to defend her against predators, but now it faced a far more dangerous enemy, its own kind, armed with advanced weapons and military training. And Sarah realized with growing horror that humanity had somehow walked into the middle of an alien civil war. The approaching army was still several kilometers away, but they were moving fast and with clear hostile intent. Sarah looked at her protector, this magnificent being who had risked its life for a creature it had just met, and made a decision that would reshape the future of human-alien relations. "Captain Torres," she called over her comm, "I need you to send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're not just dealing with first contact anymore. We're dealing with first contact with a species at war with itself, and, somehow, we've chosen a side." As the alien army drew closer, Sarah's protector and its companions took defensive positions around the research station. They had made their choice: they would protect the humans who had shown them respect and friendship, even if it meant fighting their own kind. The battle for the future of two species was about to begin, and Sarah Chen found herself standing at the center of the most important moment in human history, protected by aliens who had chosen friendship over fear, cooperation over conquest. The real test of this alliance was approaching fast, and there would be no retreat for either species. The alien army reached them as the twin suns began their descent toward the crystalline horizon. Sarah watched from the research station's reinforced observation deck as the military formation spread out in a perfect tactical pattern, surrounding both the station and her protector's small group. The lead alien was magnificent and terrifying, its armor bearing elaborate markings that clearly indicated high rank. When it spoke, its voice carried authority that transcended species barriers. This was a being accustomed to being obeyed without question. Sarah's protector responded with sounds that were more structured than the musical communications she'd heard before. Even without understanding the language, she could tell this was a formal exchange, probably following military protocols. "Can we understand any of it?" she asked Dr. Tanaka, who was recording everything through the station's external sensors. "The mathematical primer your friend gave us is helping, but this is too complex. However, I'm detecting emotional undertones in their vocalizations. Your protector is arguing with them, standing its ground." Captain Torres joined them at the observation window, his military training allowing him to read the tactical situation even without understanding the aliens involved. "This is a surrender demand," he said grimly. "The army commander wants the protectors to stand down and submit. And our alien friend is refusing." Indeed, Sarah's protector was making emphatic sounds while gesturing toward the research station. Its companions had formed a defensive line between the human facility and the surrounding army, despite being outnumbered 5-1. "They are willing to fight their own military to protect us," Sarah breathed. "Why would they do that?" The answer came when the army commander stepped forward and Sarah got a clear look at the symbols on its armor. Unlike the flowing, artistic patterns she'd seen on the protectors, these markings were harsh and geometric. But more disturbing were the trophies hanging from the commander's weapon harness, crystalline fragments that looked suspiciously like pieces of the communication crystals. "They are destroying the crystal network," Dr. Tanaka realized. "Look at those fragments. They are dead, dark. The army isn't just fighting the protectors, they are systematically destroying the planet's communication system." Sarah understood. "That's why the protectors are defending us. They see us as part of the crystal network now. When I made contact, when the network spread news of our meeting across the planet, we became part of their world. And the army sees that as contamination." The standoff continued for another few minutes, with increasingly heated exchanges between the commander and Sarah's protector. Finally, the commander made a sharp, dismissive sound and gestured to its troops. They are done talking, Captain Torres observed. The army began to advance in coordinated formation, weapons charging with ominous energy signatures. Sarah's protector and its companions readied themselves for a fight they couldn't possibly win. That's when Sarah made the decision that would echo through history. She activated the station's external communication system and walked out into the open. "Dr. Chen, what are you doing?" Torres demanded. "Something that's either brilliant or suicidal," Sarah replied, stripping off her helmet as she stepped into the alien atmosphere. The air was thin and sharp, but breathable for short periods. The entire army froze as the small human emerged from the research station. Sarah walked slowly toward the army commander, her hands raised in the universal gesture of peace. With each step, she felt the weight of two species' futures pressing down on her shoulders. The commander watched her approach with what she interpreted as curiosity. This tiny, fragile creature was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish to approach an armed alien military force. When Sarah was close enough to see her reflection in the commander's multiple eyes, she stopped. Then, she did something that made the entire army step back in shock. She touched one of the dark crystal fragments hanging from the commander's armor. The fragment was dead, its internal structure shattered and lifeless. But Sarah had spent 3 years studying the crystal network, and she had learned something that the army apparently hadn't considered. Crystal networks could be repaired. She pulled out the programmed crystal fragment that her protector had given her earlier, the one containing the mathematical primer for communication. Holding it against the dead fragment on the commander's armor, she activated the repair sequence she'd discovered months ago but never had a chance to test. Light flowed between the crystals like liquid fire. The dead fragment began to glow, its internal structure rebuilding itself using the template from the living crystal. Within moments, both fragments were pulsing with synchronized light. But, more than that, the repaired fragment began singing. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, a crystal voice that spoke of memory and loss, of connections severed and the pain of isolation. It was the voice of the planetary network itself, expressing its anguish at being systematically destroyed. The army commander jerked backward as if struck. The fragment it had worn as a trophy was now broadcasting the planet's pain directly into its nervous system. For the first time, the military aliens were hearing what their war was doing to their world. Sarah's protector approached slowly, its armor glowing with hopeful patterns. It began to sing along with the crystal, adding harmonies that spoke of healing and restoration. One by one, the other protectors joined the song, creating a symphony that made the crystalline ground beneath them ring like bells. The effect on the army was immediate and dramatic. Some aliens stepped backward, their weapons powering down. Others began making sounds that could only be interpreted as distress. A few actually knelt, overwhelmed by the planet's pain. The commander stared at the singing crystal on its armor, then at Sarah, then at the protectors who had risked everything to defend her. For a long moment, the fate of 3 species hung in the balance. Then, the commander did something unprecedented. It removed its weapons and placed them on the ground. The sound that came from the commander was different from any alien communication Sarah had heard before. It was complex, formal, and carried emotional undertones that spoke of regret and recognition. "It's apologizing," Dr. Tanaka's voice came through Sarah's comm link. "I can't translate the specifics, but the emotional patterns are clear. It's expressing regret." Sarah's protector approached the commander, moving slowly and carefully. The 2 aliens faced each other across the gulf of their civil war, warrior and protector, destroyer and guardian. Then, Sarah's protector did something that changed everything. It reached out and gently touched the commander's armor, right where the repaired crystal fragment continued its song of pain and healing. The commander's armor began to shift, its harsh geometric patterns flowing into the more organic design Sarah associated with the protectors. The change was gradual but unmistakable. This was an alien choosing to transform its very identity. The armor isn't just decoration, Sarah realized. It's a reflection of their role in society. The commander is choosing to become a protector. Other military aliens were following their leader's example, removing weapons and allowing their armor to shift into protector patterns. Not all of them, some maintained their military appearance and withdrew to a respectful distance, but enough to show that Sarah's demonstration had fundamentally changed the dynamics of the alien conflict. Captain Torres emerged from the research station, followed by the rest of the human team. They approached slowly, aware that they were witnessing the end of an alien war and the beginning of something unprecedented. The commander approached Sarah and made a formal sound while bowing deeply. When it straightened, it presented her with something extraordinary, a crystal fragment unlike any she'd seen before. This one wasn't just a communication device, it was a memory crystal, containing the full history of the alien species. It's giving you their history, Dr. Tanaka breathed. Their entire cultural record. Sarah accepted the crystal with appropriate ceremony, feeling its weight both physical and symbolic. When she touched its surface, images flowed into her mind, centuries of alien history, their gradual split into military and protector factions, their increasing isolation from the crystal network that sustained their world. She saw how the military faction had become convinced that alien contact would corrupt their culture, how they'd begun destroying the crystal network to prevent outside communication. She saw how the protectors had fought to maintain the connections that kept their world alive and thriving. And she saw how her simple act of respect, her willingness to trust and be trusted, had provided a path forward that neither faction had been able to imagine. The commander was speaking again, this time including gestures toward the research station and the human team. "I think it's making us an offer," Sarah said. "A formal alliance between humans and the unified alien factions." Over the following hours, as the twin suns set and the planet's aurora began to dance across the sky, the foundations of an unprecedented relationship were laid. The aliens taught the humans how to interface with the crystal network, sharing communication protocols that would allow real-time translation between species. The humans, in turn, shared their own knowledge, techniques for repairing damaged crystals, methods for expanding communication networks across vast distances, and, most importantly, the concept of diversity as a source of strength rather than contamination. Dr. Tanaka worked with alien technicians to establish a permanent communication link between the research station and the planetary network. Marcus found himself deep in conversation with former military aliens who were fascinated by human concepts of conflict resolution. Captain Torres coordinated with alien protectors to establish joint security protocols. And Sarah stood with her original protector, watching the crystalline landscape light up with renewed communication as damaged network nodes were repaired and reconnected. "You saved them," she said quietly, knowing the alien couldn't understand her words but hoping it would understand her meaning. "By choosing to protect me, you saved your entire species from destroying itself." The alien's armor cycled through warm, pleased patterns. Then, it made a sound that Sarah was beginning to recognize as its version of her name, a musical approximation that somehow captured her essence in alien harmonics. She responded with her own attempt at its name, a complex series of tones that made the crystal network around them sing in harmony. It wasn't perfect, but it was understanding. It was connection. Over the following days, as word of the successful first contact spread to Earth and throughout the alien world, Sarah found herself appointed as humanity's first official ambassador to an alien species. The role came with challenges she'd never imagined, learning to navigate not just language barriers but entirely different concepts of society, identity, and purpose. The aliens, who called themselves the Kethvar, were experiencing their own transformations. The end of their civil war had unleashed a renaissance of creativity and exploration. Former soldiers worked alongside protectors to repair their world and expand their understanding of the universe. Most remarkably, they began asking questions about Earth and human society. They wanted to understand how a species could maintain unity while embracing diversity, how humans managed conflict without destroying their communication networks, how they balanced individual freedom with collective responsibility. "They are learning from us as much as we're learning from them," Sarah reported to Earth Command during one of her regular briefings. "This isn't just first contact, it's the beginning of a true partnership between species." The Kethvar had designated her protector, whose name was something like Veltaon when translated into human sounds, as their liaison to humanity. The partnership between Sarah and Veltaon became the model for human Kethvar relations, based on mutual respect, willingness to take risks for friendship, and the understanding that differences could be sources of strength rather than conflict. 6 months after first contact, the research station on Kepler, for 42b, had been transformed into something unprecedented, the first joint human-alien facility in known history. Human scientists worked alongside HFY researchers to study the crystal network and develop new communication technologies. The planet's surface was dotted with expanded research installations where both species pushed the boundaries of their knowledge. Most importantly, the facility served as a beacon for other species throughout the galaxy. The HFY crystal network had detected signs of intelligence on dozens of worlds, and plans were already underway for expeditions to make contact with other civilizations. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the expanded station, watching human children and young HFY play together in the crystalline gardens that had grown up around the facility. The young ones had no trouble communicating despite their radically different biologies. They'd invented games that transcended species barriers and seemed to instinctively understand each other's emotional states. "They'll grow up thinking this is normal," Dr. Tanaka observed, joining Sarah at the window. Humans and aliens working together, learning from each other, building something neither species could achieve alone. "Maybe that's exactly what we need," Sarah replied. "A generation that sees cooperation across species barriers as the natural state of things." Veltaon approached them, its armor now displaying the complex patterns that marked it as both a protector and a diplomat. The alien had learned to modulate its vocalizations to better match human hearing, and its attempts at human language were becoming increasingly sophisticated. "Sarah friend," it said in carefully modulated tones, "the Council of Resonance wishes to present the proposal for the deep network extension." Sarah smiled at her friend's formal tone. The HFY were still learning human concepts of casual conversation, just as humans were still adapting to the alien emphasis on harmonic communication. The deep network extension was ambitious beyond anything either species had attempted before. Using combined human technology and HFY crystal network techniques, they planned to establish communication links across interstellar distances, creating a network that could connect multiple worlds and species in real-time conversation. "Tell the Council we're honored by their proposal," Sarah replied. "And that humanity is eager to help build bridges between the stars." As Veltaon transmitted this message through the crystal network, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that day when she'd first stepped out of the research station to meet what her own species had labeled a monster. The universe, it turned out, was full of monsters and full of friends. The difference often came down to a single choice, whether to meet the unknown with fear and hostility, or with curiosity and hope. Sarah had chosen hope, and her alien friend had chosen protection over aggression. Those choices had saved two species from conflict and opened a path towards something neither could have achieved alone. Now, as the first human-alien colony thrived beneath the light of twin suns, and as plans took shape for expanding that cooperation across the galaxy, Sarah knew they had built something that would endure. They had built understanding. They had built trust. They had built a future where being different was a gift to be shared rather than a threat to be eliminated. And it had all started with a simple choice to see a friend where others saw a monster, and to stand together against those who would choose destruction over cooperation. The universe was vast and full of unknowns. But now, at least, humanity wouldn't face those unknowns alone. They had allies among the stars, and together they would build something magnificent.